Which Side Podcast is a proud member of the Which Side Media Collective.
This week's episode is brought to us by our Which Side Collective store. You know, Halloween's now over. It's that time of year where people buy things for each other for no reason. You know, whether or not you celebrate Saturnalius or Flying Spaghetti Monster Day, it doesn't matter. You can get 10% off using code 2weeks. So just go to whichsidecollective.org, get that 10% off. You know, we have the classic designs, we have some new designs that we've come up with, and we do it all ourselves.
I'm actually still like dizzy from all the printing today.
Proper ventilation is important.
Yes.
Stay in school.
Head on over to whichsidecollective.org and, you know, help support the collective.
Again, just use code 2weeks. That's the number 2, WEEKS, and you get 10% off.
And that's good for...
And that's good through November 8th.
This is episode 156.
Yeah, we have Derrick Bey on from Redefine Your Mind Project.
And the Redefine Your Mind
Activewear.
It's a really fun conversation. I really love the work that he's doing, the outreach that he's doing, and really bringing veganism towards youth that happen to find themselves inside our correctional systems. So stick around for that. Hey, Jordan, do you have any news and events this week?
There is a pressure campaign against Air Canada and WestJet, so you should look that up, #ban trophy exports. And that's going on right now. Also, remember the 5th of November, which is coming up. So if there's any events around, check them out. Do something. Because people tend to do things on that day.
I never watched V's for Vendetta.
V for Vendetta.
See what I mean? I never read the comics either.
They're really good. I have them if you want them ever.
The only comics I have ever owned or read is The Liberator.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
I need to get my trade paperback back from someone. Back.
For the slingshot this week, November 4th. Everyone thought I'd probably be doing November 5th. No. November 4th, 1811. The Luddite anti-industrial revolution began. They destroyed 6 weaving machines. If you like these little tidbits of history, I pulled them out of the Slingshot Personal Organizer. Right now is the best time to get one for 2016. Head on over to a local info shop or an online info shop like AK Press and get yourself one. They're fucking sweet. I still need to get mine for 2016.
I do too.
Don't let me forget. Hey, and if you do get one from an online info shop, let them know you heard about it on Which Side Podcast.
They don't sponsor us or anything. We just really like them.
True that. I sincerely hope you enjoy this episode.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side? Which side are you on? 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 Which side are you on?
Yeah, I saw you on your website. When I first learned about Which Side, I went to the website to learn a little more about it, and I saw that there were 2 of you that do the podcast.
I think cool. I have the worst picture up on that website. I'm like looking a sucker or something.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it. Yeah. Oh yeah. I do see it. I couldn't tell what that was, and I didn't really want to stare at your tongue too long. So I just said, well, it looks like he's licking something. Isn't that something? Something.
It was one of those
if I
things.
remember right.
It was one of those things where they're like, we need a picture of you. We don't have one. We're going to use this one until you give us one. And then 3 years later, I've never given them one.
Yep.
So how's your day going?
Right. I really appreciate it. Oh well, it's going. I've had better start to my day. I have a lot going on, and I'm in Maryland, by the way, just perhaps maybe approximately 30 minutes outside of Washington, D.C.
Okay. So what led to it being a rough morning so far?
I generally I get up on Sundays and I try to plan my week.
Mm-hmm.
And you would think that after a few years of trying to get a business off the ground and now going into the nonprofit sector, which I hope we'll be able to talk about shortly, it's hot. So I have to put on many different hats, and I'm drafting emails as far as business, and I'm drafting emails as far as profit. So I'm either selling something or I'm asking for something. And sometimes I get the emails crossed up. And I'm asking customers for donations, and I'm trying to sell something to foundations.
So how hard is it to really try to start an organization like you're doing? It just seems like a tremendous amount of work.
It really is, and you don't really realize it until you're actually right in the thick of it. It's really easy to just say, hey, I'm going to go online, I want to apply for a 501c3, I'll draft a bylaws and get a couple of friends, and we're going to go out and we're going to save the world, one person at a time. And that's not my slogan, by the way, but just and I just, and then you get into it and you find out that, well, you and everyone else is trying to save the world, and there are a lot of people that's trying to save you, and you're trying to save them, and then you get to a point where you start realizing that people want to convince you. I'll give you an example. Yesterday, my son and I have a 9-year-old son. His name is Drew. And he and I went down to Washington, D.C., the Washington Convention Center. Now, we went down there because there was a D.C. cook-off event going on. In fact, it's going on today, too. And we went down to see a woman in particular. Her name is Zoheret. She has a vegan business, catering business called Zoe's Vegan Delight,
mm-hmm.
right outside of Washington, D.C. She was one of the featured chefs that was going to be down there doing the cook-off. Well, when we get down there, my son and I, we get down there, and right out front, there's this group. There's a large mass of people, many of them either wearing all white or mostly white. Now, the first thing that goes in my mind is it's either one or two groups. They're either Kundalini yogis, or they are people that are part of a religious organization called the Hebrew Israelites. So as I approached them, 99% of them were Caucasian. So I quickly deduced that they were not the Hebrew Israelites, who are people of African origin who claim heritage to Israel. So I said, okay, well, certainly not them. And as I approached, I got a little closer, I realized that it wasn't even the yogis that I was thinking. Rather, it was a group called Intact. And their cause is fighting for males to keep their foreskin and not be circumcised. So when I started seeing these big posters, and it was, hey, it was like, the big poster was a baby saying, you want to cut off my what? And then it was another one that was saying, my body, my choice. And I was like, wow. I never thought that there would be people that would have a call to to stand up against male circumcision.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I started talking, they quickly approached us as we were coming in. They were leafletting and all of the things you think about in animal activism and other activism. They were doing a direct action. And I approached them and people, well, just so happened that one of the small group of that quickly descended upon us was vegan. Is vegan. And justice, and then the guy stopped me. He said, "Wait, I'm right." He said, "Are you vegan?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Wow, so am I." But the rest of them that was right there were not. And there was one guy that was very antagonistic, and so it was, well, you know, those are just quote unquote just animals. I mean, you spend your time trying to save the life of an animal as opposed to trying to save the life of a baby. And we started going back and forth about it, and they just didn't get it. So it quickly became them trying to, quote unquote, convince me that my thinking was warped. And it was like, how could you not be species? It is only natural that one life form concerns himself, herself with the life of the same life form, and that animal activism is warped. So I knew I wasn't going to get very far with them. So I started just talking to the guy that was vegan and tried to keep my thoughts on him. And I just let that conversation go. And I just told him, well, you know, we can disagree without being disrespectful. And they agreed, and they weren't disrespectful. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying all of that to say that we go out into the world, to go answer your question. We go out into the world and we believe that we're fighting the cause. And then you start running into what's called intersections. And people that have causes of their own that they're willing to stand for and even go to prison for, or worse, to even martyrdom. And that's just one case of it. So that's another factor of engaging in nonprofit work that is rarely talked about, but is often experienced. And that is coming in direct conflict with other causes that may conflict with the values that you believe other people should have.
I'm wondering why they were at a cook-off.
I couldn't figure that out, and neither could they. Because I kept asking them, well, why are you here? Why are you right here? And the only thing that I could come away with, I even tried to give them one. I said, well, you know, perhaps maybe if the next group of people come along, perhaps maybe y'all can tell them that you all are here because you all try to mobilize in areas where there's going to be a heavy concentration of people for an event. I said, maybe that'll work, but I haven't found any of you all yet, and I've talked to upwards of about 11 of you, and I haven't found any of you all yet. I said, and I'm counting maybe almost 60 of y'all, and none of y'all so far have been able to tell me why you all decided to pick this cross. Why are you standing in front of the convention center? So,
how was your son?
How
was your son to their message, or how what was his takeaway with the interaction?
He it didn't register to him what they were talking about. He was just kind of bantering about outside and just kind of looking at all the people walking, because there were different things going on at the convention center.
Yeah.
And if you look on my page, I took a picture of my son and me, I did a collage of the expression when I told my son what they were talking about afterwards. And we took a picture on my page. And then underneath it, there's a picture of myself and the guy who identified himself as vegan. And then there was the big truck that they had, a mobile unit alongside where they have all of the things that they are advocating with regard to male circumcision. I don't know if you all can see my page at this time, but if you look on my profile page, I took a collage picture and I put it on.
Have you tried to explain that intersectionality with your son and how conflicts arise when you work with different groups and how people, have to work together to get for I don't want to say greater good, but for, different goals and accomplishments?
When I'm talking to him, and in particular yesterday, because I did, and what I explained to him was, it's like playing. I said, you know how you go and you have some friends and you all want to go and y'all want to go to the playground. Y'all want to go to the playground. Y'all just want to go and hang out, maybe mess around on the swings or the board, whatever. And then as you're going to the park, you see some other people and they want to play football. And you say, well, y'all want to play football. We want to just go and swing on the swings and stuff. And they're trying to tell you, oh, that swing stuff, that's boring, that's kiddie stuff. And, come on, we need to be playing football. We're boys, we're tough. And you're saying, well, this is what we like to do. There's lots of people that like to do this. Well, sometimes somebody might come along and say, well, you know what? Why don't we go to the park and play football there? And I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, the reason I'm really asking this is because I have an 8-year-old daughter, so she's just a little bit younger, and she's starting to question those same things. Like, we'll talk about other issues, and she'll bring it up like, well, why aren't they vegan? Like, why should I do that if they're not going to do this type of thing?
Right. And my son, he questioned their stance. Again, there was really only one that would not allow himself to fathom not eating animals. And I even went a little further than I normally do when I'm talking to people. And because what I try to do is I try to say what I say, and I try to be a good listener. I try to be a better listener than I am speaker. Mm-hmm. But with him in particular, I think he was trying to needle me. But he did it with a smile on his face, but I think he was trying to needle me. And so what I did with him in particular, I asked him, I said, well, you do realize that you're a scavenger. So he paused and he says, I said, are you okay with living the life of a scavenger? And he says, well, why would you call me that? I said, because you eat dead animals. So he says, well, you have to cook them. I said, well, the sign that one of your fellow activists is holding is that God made you perfect. Why are you cutting on yourself? And he was like, that's right, God made us perfect. I said, well, the operative word that I'm working with here is God. So if you believe that God made things just as they are, then God created all animals to be just as they are. God didn't create frying pans, stoves, knives, forks, vegetable oil, or none of those things. So if you believe that you as a human being should eat cow meat, then why don't you just go bite a cow? So he kind of laughed, and then he realized I was serious. And he said, well, how barbaric would that be? I said, well, you are barbarian. I said, you allowing your mind to psych you into believing that on the one hand, God put these animals on the earth so that we can sustain ourselves and live. But then on the other hand, you have to use all of these contraptions and things that God didn't provide you with in order to be able to consume this animal. So if you believe that you should be eating animals, then why don't you just eat them exactly the way God created them? Don't pluck a chicken, just eat it. Eat her just like that. I said, now how much sense would that make to you? And he was like, well, I wouldn't do anything like that. I said, that's because in your subconscious common sense mind, it really don't make sense to eat that chicken. So he kind of just rolled his eyes and he went over and he started talking to somebody else. And then before I left, he came back and he says, Well, the only thing that I agree with you on, because I was talking to them about why I don't go to zoos and aquariums anymore. I'm a what's that show called? Twilight Zone fan. He said, and I remember there was an episode of Twilight Zone that featured Roddy McDowell called People Are the Same All Over, where Roddy McDowell went to this planet and the people looked human. And he thought that he had reached an oasis where these people were just like him. And they got him off of his spaceship and they took him to where they were. And then they allowed him to go into a house and said, hey, you can stay here. This will be all yours. Well, after a while, he got bored. He tried to leave out the house. He couldn't get out the door. And then out of nowhere, he realized that he was locked in. And he realized that the items inside of the house, the apartment, were fake. They were props. And then the side door opens, and he realized that he was actually in a cage. And then there was a sign outside the cage saying, like, habitat, and then on the sign it said human. And it was the lesson was about, caging other beings. So I told him, I said, well, yeah, I'm familiar with that episode. I love Twilight Zone too. I said, well, if you're a fan of Twilight Zone, then you also remember the episode called To Serve Man, where these aliens came to Earth and they took away all disease and everything, and then they told them after they did all that, humans started to trust them, and then they started to go with these aliens to their planet. But this one scientist realized that the people were leaving but not coming back. And one of the aliens had left a book, and on the book cover it said To Serve Man, and they were thinking, because they couldn't decipher the language of these aliens, that the book meant that they were going to be, all the different ways that they were going to be helping human beings. Well, finally, another scientist was able to crack the code of the book, and it wasn't that they were trying to help humans. The book was a cookbook, and it was all the different ways to serve men on a plate. So when I asked him about that, he looked, he was like, well, I never thought of it like that. And I said, well, that if you saw that episode, you should have seen the other one. And I left him with that thought. Now, I don't know if he continued to think about it or not, but the vegan guy that I was talking to, his name is James Lowen. He was from British Columbia. He had come down from British Columbia. He told me that he was glad that I had given him that, because he said this guy's always talking about episodes of Twilight Zone. He was like, now I have something to say to them when we're talking about intersection, because he said there are only like a couple of vegans that I know of that are part of this intact movement.
So what's the origin of like Redefine Your Mind? Like, what made you one day decide, damn it, I'm going to do this?
Redefine Your Mind, the actual name, I had brought a guy by the name of John Hines on board to assist me with. He's a consultant, and I told him that I wanted to write a book. So he gave me a list of names and phrases that he had come with. One of them was Redefine Your Mind, and I that. Reason why that story is a little deeper. I was deemed incorrigible as a youth. It had been determined that I was a misfit that had acts. I had become a part of what the government identified as a street gang, and between dealing illegal drugs and committing violent acts on other people that were identified as being other street gangs, I ended up incarcerated for 12 years, 4 months. During the period of my incarceration, during the first part of my incarceration for violent crimes and distribution of illegal narcotics, I got really sick. I had eaten some corned beef hash that was made out of cow meat, and the meat was rancid. It was really bad, and I got food poisoning from it. And I declared at that moment that I would never eat any more of that meat again. So I started just really filling up on vegetables and things like that. When I went to the federal system, I was still eating fish and I was still eating chicken. And one day I was in the cafeteria and the chicken that they had cooked wasn't cooked all the way through. And you could see when I went to take the leg and the thigh piece that was still connected, I went to break it and you could hear the tear and you could see the tendons and the joint and the cartilage between the top of the leg and the bottom of the thigh. And it made me sick to look at it. And at that moment, I said, I'm not eating this. And some of the guys that were at the table with me were saying, no, go back up there and get another piece. I said, no, I don't want any more of it. That's okay. I'm okay. I don't want any more of it. So I stopped eating it at that point. Short while after that, one of my buddies was trying to, I guess, so what ended up happening was the guy actually told me, well, you know, you don't eat chickens, but you eat eggs, and eggs are baby chicken. So I said, you know what, you can have that too. So I stopped eating that. When I was released, I started seeing all of the different vegan options, but I was still eating as what would be identified as a vegetarian without actually calling myself that. Mm-hmm. I just wasn't eating I wasn't eating any animals, but I was eating cheese that comes, you know, I was eating cheese made from cow's milk, and in particular pizza. And it wasn't until I started coming into contact with different animal activists that I started learning about the compassion aspect of what these animals go through, what these females go through, and how they are abused and subjected to forms. And it was then that I decided that I would not. It wasn't, as much as I loved Lito's pizza, it wasn't worth it to me. So I just stopped eating. I just stopped eating cheese. Cheese made from cow's milk anyway. I stopped eating it, and I wasn't a big fan of cow's milk anyway.
So how do you go from that to your current work with Redefine Your Mind?
Well, going back to what I was speaking about with regard to the book, mm-hmm. One of the things that I had planned to do when I was released is what a lot of people want to do. Release, they want to write a book, and it's one of those things where ex-offenders for whatever reason or reasons, believe that, oh well, I'm home, I'm released, and now everybody wants to hear my story. And I was one of them. So I wanted to write a book about my experiences and subsequently, what I was doing with my life at that point, which was working a 9-to-5 with the Transit Authority in Washington, D.C., etc. And then I started to realize that, I'm writing a book that I myself wouldn't want to read. I don't read them kind of books myself. So it became increasingly difficult to write a book like that. And when I started thinking about the most significant impact of my life, the most significant impact of my life, I started thinking about how it really shaped my thinking, mm-hmm. was yoga. I adopted yoga while I was incarcerated. I had crossed paths with some people that was into Buddhism. In the federal system, you meet many people from many different parts of the world, and they practice their own religions, and they're allowed to do so. I started learning about Buddhism. I started reading a lot about, the Buddhist ways. And while I did not want to adopt a Buddhist religion, or the lifestyle, yoga particularly intrigued me. So I started doing yoga a lot. One of the core tenets of yoga is ahimsa,
Mm-hmm.
which means nonviolence. So I was engaged, in yoga one day with a group, and afterwards I asked the instructor, how is it that she in particular and yogis in general go through these asanas, go through these progressions of yoga, and then at the very end of your session talk about ahimsa and not being, harmful to any living being, any living force, and then go off and have a cheeseburger made from a cow. She got offended, but her being offended was more her not being able to answer the question than her feeling that I was making a personal attack.
Mm-hmm.
And I started asking other yogis, and they couldn't answer it either. And that's when I realized that I see my transformation. I see that my different mindset, and Redefine Your Mind took on a whole new meaning. I crossed paths with a woman who had asked me about Redefine Your Mind, and she had asked me, what it meant. She thought that the clothing that I had at the time was yoga wear. So Redefine Your Mind went from just being lifestyle T-shirts to T-shirts that are specifically designed for people that engage in yoga and low to moderate activities like that. So that's how it became active.
When I was in federal prison, I got a book sent in called Hey Yoga Man. Have you heard of that one?
No, I haven't.
It's pretty much about a guy who was doing yoga inside prison, and he got actually got it to be an extra activity that they allowed. It was a pretty good book. It just reminded me of that for some reason.
That was you, Jeremy, or you,
Jordan? Jordan, yeah.
Oh, Jordan. Oh, okay. Yeah. And again, my senses are what caused Redefine Your Mind to be what it is now. So Redefine Your Mind, the brand, is activewear that is specifically developed to feature vegan idealism, graphics, and messaging, particularly for people that live a non-harming way of life and who choose to, wear their mantras and, their beliefs on their sleeve, as we say, so to speak, while engaging in activities such as yoga that they love. So we try to create what we call conversation pieces. We want to be able to have T-shirts, headbands, water bottles, even bottoms coming out in 2016 that would cause people to say, "Wow, what does that mean? What's Redefine Your Mind? What do you mean you're vegan to the core? What is that? What is that symbol? It looks like a yin yang symbol, but one side it looks like animals, and the other side it looks like people doing yoga poses." And so we try to come up with what we call conversation pieces. Now, just as an aside, in 2016, you ought to ask me about how difficult it is to be able to try to get both a business and a non-profit off the ground. In 2016, I will no longer be the face of Redefine Your Mind Active. It will be my longtime friend and new business partner, Demetria Plunkett, who at some point I hope you all will get an opportunity to meet as well. Demetria has been phenomenal with regard to grabbing hold of the reins of the activewear brand and putting her own thumbprint on it and shaping and molding and taking what I was able to do thus far with it and hopefully be able to ascend in ways that would promote veganism and promote liberation for all beings and non-harming way of life, in a broader perspective. While I will be taking overfull the reins of Redefine Your Mind Project, which is what the nonprofit arm of the brand is called. And I will be taking over the Redefine Your Mind Project in 2016.
Would you mind going into what the Redefine Your Mind Project is a little bit?
Oh, sure, I'd love to. So, unlike Redefine Your Mind Active, which is our clothing that we were just talking about, Redefine Your Mind Project, our core mission with Redefine Your Mind Project is to engage youth that have been, like myself, deemed incorrigible, violent, volatile, and have demonstrated patterns of aggressiveness towards others, to engage them in what we call character educational strategies through restorative practices that infuse yoga principles and vegan idealism in a way that will empower them and be advantageous to the environment, the community, and all beings.
What has been some of the reactions to the project?
Well, the project was initially started. It came about through me in August of 2014. But what I noticed immediately, what we were talking a little earlier about how how difficult it is to actually, you can conceive a project or a business, but to actually go through the workings of bringing it to fruition is is indeed a process. So when I initially thought about Redefine Your Mind Project as a nonprofit, the first thing you want to do is you want to put together a board of directors. Well, here's what I found out. And, you all's questions, when people listen to this, they'll probably think they scripted because many of the questions that you asked me earlier is actually based upon a lot of the things that I've been through. But now I'm saying that to say that you asked me about intersection and how things come together, because here's one of the most painful things that I've found out about many people that have adopted a vegan lifestyle. Humans are of little concern. They are very unconcerned with humans. So when I started reaching out to people about this grand idea I had about engaging incarcerated youth, see, not just urban youth or youth in urban communities, I go behind the prison walls. I go into the juvenile detention centers. You go to, right now we're building the website aspect for Redefine Your Mind Project, but if you go to Facebook and /RYM project, or just look up Redefine Your Mind Project on Facebook, and you'll see videos and you'll see photos and some of the things that, been currently doing thus far. But to the startup, try to put together a board. Now, it does. You only need 3 people to start a board. You need a president, you need a secretary, and you need a treasurer to be able to have a legal filing. Well, trying to put that together was a huge undertaking. And 3 different attempts over a 15-month span all fell flat because people either came aboard and decided, you know what, I see what you're trying to do, but let's not really focus on that. Let's focus on this. And I'm saying, well, you haven't even signed on a dotted line yet, and you're ready to move in a different direction. And then you had others that would come in and they would say, well, I see what you're trying to do, but I want to focus more on animal activism than I do about character development. Well, part of the philosophy behind Redefine Your Mind Project is if your character is flawed, I believe that just like veganism, that non-veganism is a lifestyle. So if you don't start with character, if you don't start with the way you think and how you see things, let's call it perspective. If you're not dealing with perspective, then you're not going to get youth that have been accused of shooting and maiming and harming and selling drugs to each other to give a doggone about a turtle. You just not, if they have an attitude that they just don't care about where they are, they don't care about their life, they don't care about your life, then what makes you think they're gonna care about a chicken? So what has to happen, at least from my belief, is we need them to understand about the power and the benefit of caring. Now, what I don't want to do, and what I haven't been doing, is I don't want to say, well, first we'll do this and then we'll do this. So what you want to do is you want to introduce it as a package. So, for example, when I went in and I started talking about breast cancer awareness, and I was talking to youth groups about breast cancer awareness, what I did was I talked about the breast, but then I was able to tie in other mammals like cows. And then I was able to talk about the two ways that scientists believe you contract cancer, either hereditary or acquired. And while I could not speak, authoritatively on the hereditary aspect, only that it is a good idea to always get yourself checked out, especially if there's a history in your family of different types of cancer. The acquired aspect is something that we can control in great measure. And it starts with the foods we eat. And many of it comes from breast milk, which ties into cows and our exploitation of them. And then I asked the girls in particular to imagine having someone put you in a box where you can't stretch your arms out fully, you can't stand up fully, you can't move around, and then they connect two breast pumps to you, and they keep you there confined and muffle your cries because they don't your all day. And remember, just like other mammals, and yourself included, because humans are mammals, humans are animals, the only way to get you to produce milk is to impregnate you. So there we are. Time you have a baby, we impregnate you again. But we're not impregnating you for your benefit. We're impregnating you because we need you to keep producing milk. We're impregnating you because we need you to keep producing babies that we can kill and sell the parts of. And most of them cringe and they can't fathom it. So I tie that into the breast cancer awareness and talking about the food. So I don't have to leave out the animals. Mm-hmm. And I don't have to disregard what they're going through and things that would help them as individuals, as people. It's just brainstorming and coming together and finding different aspects to be able to tie it to. What, Jordan, you know as well as I, what demographic of people can relate to the idea of keeping inhabitants locked in cages, such as we call zoos and aquariums, like the prison population? If don't no other group on this planet get it, mm-hmm. They get it. But how many of us activists actually go and try to talk to ex-offenders? Yeah. And try to talk to people that have been incarcerated? For whatever reason or reasons, we don't. But you would think that would be the group that you would go to. Why? Because they get it. They know what it's like to be taken out of their natural habitat, their hoods, their communities, and placed into this makeshift habitat, such as what we were talking about with the Twilight Zone episode the same all over. Placed in this habitat because people believe you're better off. And they study you, and they feed you, and they do all these things for you because they believe they're doing you a benefit. Mm-hmm. And they get it. They get it right away. They'll get it before someone that's never been enclosed in a cage. And when you talk to ex-offenders and you talk to prisoners about that, and you give it to them from that perspective, I haven't met one yet that said, well, you know what, I'm still going to the zoo. Most of them say, you know what, I ain't never look at it like that. Yeah, I ain't never going to another zoo. Yeah, that's it for me. That's it. Matter of fact, I don't even want an aquarium. Yeah. because that's lockup. And they've been convicted of crimes they've never even been good. They innocent. What do? The only crime is being different.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Now, for those people that I talk to through Redefine My Project concept, when I talk to people that have never experienced lockup or have never experienced a form of incarceration or confinement, let's call it, what I do is I ask them, I say, close your eyes, if you will, even figuratively or literally, and imagine someone having the power to grant you a mansion. And you can have in this mansion all sorts of things. Everything your heart could desire, including a mate of your dreams, and you can have children. Your children can live with you. You have 20 rooms. You can have your own everything. But there's only one caveat. You can never leave. You have to remain there the rest of your life. How long do you think you could stay there before that'll get old?
Yeah.
And most of them say, well, yeah. You can't think of anything that could possibly be given you that would make you say that, you know what, I don't ever want to leave this particular space for the rest of my life. Because that's what you do to those animals in the zoo. And you make yourself believe that they're happy. Because, the lions are being fed. You know how hard it would be for them to have to forage for food in the jungle? Well, I tell you what, go tell those homeless people out there in society, hey, you don't have to live out here on the street. You don't have to sleep on these grates when it's freezing cold. Come on and let me lock you up. And that way you can have 3 meals a day and you can have food. Maryland in particular, and I see in the beginning stages of D.C., I have not started going into.
Yeah.
It's unnatural. It's unnatural. And for us to believe as human beings that because we're human and we think that we're conscious of where we are, and animals are not. If you think they're not, then open the cage on DC's DJS just yet. But what Merlin is, they're concerned with my speaking extensively about the dietary aspect of veganism. They don't have a problem with the way that I present veganism, but it's the dietary part, because their fear, as they call it, is what happens when you convince these juveniles that drinking cow's milk is not good for them. What happens? Because if you're talking about adults, then adults, you could say, well, look, this is what you're going to eat, and you either eat it or you don't eat it. But with children, we'll have all kinds of problems because we're responsible for making certain that they get the proper supplements. And as our dietary plan, we follow the government's food chart. We believe that these supplements, even if off the record we understand where you're coming from, we can't overhaul our menu. So what happens when these youth, who are many of them just looking for a reason to rebel about something anyway, what happens when they decide that, you know what, you're not feeding me another patty that's made out of minced chicken? What happens then? Because you can't come in here and you can't bring food in from the outside, and we can't change our menu. So I've had to be very cautious, tread lightly in speaking about the dietary aspect. I speak about it, but I mostly concern myself with the environment, exploitation, zoos, and aquariums when I'm talking to those youth. Mm-hmm. And the dietary part, I'll only bring up if someone asks a question, direct question, because they certainly understand, and we've agreed that I'm certainly not going to lie, and I'm not going to pretend that doesn't matter. But what I won't do is I won't force it down their throat, because to be fair, when they asked me that question, I really didn't have a definitive answer for what I would do at that point. They say, you know what? You're right, Mr. Bey. We're not eating that anymore. We're not eating any of that anymore. All that stuff made from dead animals. We want some food that ain't been. We know we're not buzzards. So that's pretty much where I am now.
Have you seen a lot of youth actually make those type of choices while they're incarcerated, and how, and if they are, how it can, they be helped in getting there? Because I mean, I know making changes like that inside a system where you, like you say, they have very stringent, rigid menus. How can we best, support these people in making these decisions?
Well, that's what I'm working on now, and it for us with Project, it starts with us engaging the actual meal plan and that part of the government that's responsible for putting it together. I believe we have to start there, because we don't want to put ourselves in a position where we're not to come inside, because they feel that you know what, you all are coming in and you all are causing trouble, and now we have all these issues, and parents are calling here saying that their children are malnourished because they won't eat. And then when they look back on it, they'll say, well, who'd you have come in there? Oh, we had an ex-offender that started a program that came in here. Well, no wonder. That person's anti-government anyway. So, and y'all let him in? Oh, my. So I have to tread lightly without compromising what Redefine Your Mind Project's core mission is.
What's been the hardest part with like you say, having to tread lightly and work with inside of a system like that?
You said what's been the hardest part?
Yeah.
Well, with the youth, it hasn't been difficult at all. As those that are incarcerated, it would be great if I could bring in meals and samples, and I'm working on that as we speak. The issue, the biggest hurdle with that, bringing in anything like as part of a demonstration, is again going back to, okay, what happens when you bring in veggie burgers and they like them, and you say, guess what? Didn't have to kill anything to make this, and they say, oh wow, these good. You know what? We want these, and now the kitchen staff saying, hey, we can't order them. We can't order them. The government sends us this food. We can't just go out and order that. So now what? So that's the biggest hurdle. Trying to get in contact with the right people to be able to go. And again, going back to what I was saying about other animal activists and other animal activist organizations, I don't get support. I don't get the support that one would think. One would think that I would get support, but I don't. Welfare World, Dawn Moncrief is founder of an organization called A Welfare World in Washington, D.C., and she has been very supportive. Another woman, her name is Alyssa Hosser of the Pollination Project, and when I initially told her about what I was planning to do, I met her at the 2013 Animal Rights Conference when it was out in California, Farm Animal Rights Conference. I met her, and at that time I was exhibiting the table for Redefine Your Mind activewear. And I told her, oh, by the way, when she told me who she was and that she had the Pollination Project, helps start up nonprofits, she was very on board. Now, I haven't been able to make a lot of contact with her here recently because I've been so active in a lot of the different things that I've been doing. But she has been supportive. But some of the quote unquote larger organizations, they haven't been supportive. There have been individuals in those organizations that have been supportive, but not the organization, if that makes sense.
Yeah. That's one of those things that has always bothered me. You would think that the intersectionality between prison abolishment work and prisoner support work, it would go tied perfectly in with animal rights. Like you're saying, you would think that every animal rights activist would understand it from just the whole locking up and it's inhumane and wrong. And you'd think that everyone would be easily, on board. So how do you think we can convince these animal rights activists or work with animal rights activists, I should say, more to show them that this issue is something that is super important, and not only does it need, focus right now, but it ties in with exactly what you're currently working on.
Well, I'll tell you, one of the most irritating responses, or let's call them retorts, that I hear from some of the most hardcore activists, as they identify themselves, is the saying, humans have voices, animals don't. That's what I get as an immediate response. That's what I get as an indirect response. That's the gist of what I get in concluding a conversation with others. That because it is believed that, well, humans have the power and the voices to speak out, animals don't, then we're not fighting for the rights of humans and stuff. Yeah, we empathize with a lot of the things that people are going through, but that's not our fight. Our fight is to protect these animals. Well, aren't humans animals?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, it's like, well, aren't humans animals? Yeah. So it's like, okay, you're going to fight to protect these animals, and you want to fight to liberate these animals. But who are you going to? How are you going to go about getting people on board with you to help you with this fight? Well, we got to go out. We got to talk to people. Okay, so isn't that what I'm talking about? Well, yeah, but you're talking about that fight. Okay. In other words, if I told you, hey, I'm willing to come down and I'm willing to help you with your leafletting today, but right now I have a situation going on here at the house because my dad, you know, is always punching on me and stuff, and you know, all the time, and you know, I know if I leave out and I go down there and I go leafletting with you, time I come back, I'm gonna come back to a black eye, if not two. Then you would say to me, oh, well, you know what? You don't have to go through that. Let us see if we can find some way to put you up. Oh, okay. So in other words, so you'll help an individual that's going through something because the greater good is that individual being a part of what it is that you're trying to accomplish. But when we're talking about a demographic, because this is what we're talking about, people's situations are homogeneous. It's not that when you walk into a prison, everybody in there is dealing with the same thing. That's not true. So when we're talking about dealing with these youth, the first thing we have to do with these with activists is try to get them to understand that just like you go on college campuses, just like you say you need to go into urban communities, just like you say you know you need to go then the prison population is a population. It is a society within a society, and no one's going in and reaching them. Now, if it makes you uncomfortable to go inside, I'll go. Just give me the information. That's all I ask. But I need information that's going to be able to help me help them. If you just give me a bunch of leaflets saying why be vegan, then yeah, that makes sense. But when they come home and they're coming home to a household that have a refrigerator and pantry full of animals, and they don't have the ways and means to be able to figure out how to go about sustaining themselves the way that we've been telling them, then we really haven't helped them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We've just given them some information.
How as activists can we help other animal rights activists remove the stigma of people that are either been incarcerated or are currently incarcerated? Because I mean, it almost feels like that's what it boils down to. It's like people view it as like a second class type of citizen.
Yeah, or they're bad people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, instead of victims of the system. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and again, there are many people. In fairness to animal activism, there are many people, no matter what type of activism or cause, whatever, that have, remember now, for every person that is incarcerated for one crime or another, there's a victim that we know, that we've crossed paths with, that we engage every day, that we walk alongside, that we stand alongside, that we fight alongside, have been victims in one way or another. So when you mention the very word incarcerated, criminal, defendant, inmate, prisoner, they have their own subtle flashbacks to the time their purse was snatched, to the time, you know, the bully beat them up in school, to the time, you know, they were assaulted, they were sexually assaulted, they were, you know, things that they may have never told anybody. And now you're asking them, without you realizing it, you're asking them to go help the person that caused them that pain that they're forced to try to suppress in throughout their lives. You don't even realize that that's what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So this is why I don't openly ridicule people, or I don't openly ridicule individuals for their decision not to assist us. What I do, however, find myself sitting and talking openly about organizational tactics that call for going out to different sectors and different demographics, and not others. Because if you're telling me that your mission is to stop people from eating animals, then at some point somebody's going to have to go and tell them. Somebody's going to have to go tell them, unless you plan on having them shipped to Mars. But if you're not, then sooner or later these youth will walk amongst us. And these youth will someday become adults. And if we believe that these youth are tomorrow's next generation, then why not? So when I go in and I talk Jeremy, Jordan, when I go in and I talk to these youth, the first thing I tell them is, listen, I didn't come here looking for followers. I came here looking for leaders. And then I ask them a question. When I engage them, I get them around in a circle, like in the restorative practice. So instead of sitting in a circle, we stand in a circle. And I ask them, excuse me, by show of hands, how many of you all have ever been in a fight with someone, whether it was a gunfight, a knife fight, a fist fight, a harsh argument with someone in protection of someone else, even though it wasn't you that the individual you arguing with had done something to? In other words, how many of y'all have ever been in an altercation with somebody because y'all was taking up for somebody else? And whenever I walk into a room and I ask that question, everybody raised their hand. And at that point, I say, let me ask you a second question. Did you do it because it was that individual, or is it that you just don't like bullies? You just don't like people that pick on others. You just don't like to see other people taken advantage of. And most of them, not all, but most of them will say, yeah. Or some will say it was my sister, it was my brother. But most of them say, I just don't like to see people take care. And then I tell them, you know what? You're an activist. You are an activist. An activist is one who stands in opposition against another in protection of someone else. That's an activist. So now that you've identified yourself properly, because y'all are really not troublemakers. Y'all are really not rival. If you go and you ask an activist, the government will tell them that they have the same monikers and same titles that y'all have. Troublemakers, rabble-rousers, miscreants, misfit, and all the rest. They get the same labels y'all do, except you all don't identify yourselves as being activists. Now, the problem is how you go about your activism. That's the problem. So let's talk about that. And then I start to teach. And then I tell them, hey, listen, y'all wanna? I have a group of individuals that need your help, and they have this happen to them, and that happened to them, this happened to them. And then I tell them, you know what I'm talking about? And then they say, oh, you talking about some girls? Nah, not the girls y'all thinking. I'm talking about females, but not the girls y'all thinking. I'm talking about cows. And then they look, cows? Yeah, but you didn't realize I was talking about cows. You know why? Because the struggle and the exploitation are the same. I can tell you all the things that happen to a cow and never call her a cow, and you think that I was talking about a human female. Mm-hmm. And these are the things that have to be pointed out. And once those things are pointed out, now we can move to the next phase of teaching. So what's it going to take for you all to come out there with me and help me get it through to other people that keeping individuals locked up somewhere that they really don't want to be is not right? Oh, yeah, I ain't no problem telling nobody that. Cool, good. Good. Now we on to something.
I love that approach that you take with them, and I love that you approach it from the aspect of, you know, you're seeking leaders. You're not seeking someone to follow your path, because I feel like that happens so much with inside that population, where you get, you know, certain institutions in there that they're just almost looking for more people in their flock or whatever.
Yep. I tell the young people, I don't want to be your leader. I want to teach you how to lead. Many of you are already community leaders. How many of you all in this room have ever gotten into a fight with someone because of the neighborhood they were from versus the neighborhood you were from? How many of you all don't like the idea that this young man that comes from this particular community and neighborhood is coming into your community to try to hit on or, you know, date or take out some girl from y'all's community? You don't like it. How many of you all, when I ask y'all where y'all from, y'all name the neighborhood? You don't even know anything about the history of the name that you're using, but you identify yourself as being a representative of it. So like me, I grew up in different parts of Washington, D.C. One of the neighborhoods is called Leroy Park. So when someone says to me, hey, where are you from? Oh, I'm from Leroy Park. Well, I am so happy that someone didn't say to me, who's Leroy? I'd have been stuck. And yet, you were willing to risk your life if somebody say, oh, Leroy Park ain't nothing. Automatically, you take that as a slight against you. You take that as a personal slight against you. And your name not Leroy. So what I tell them, I show them is, hey, you know, you put yourself in these positions and that you really don't have to be. You already are community organizer. Now what we need to do is get you involved in some things that are actually benefit your community, because you already have the heart. You already have the courage. If you down with something, you really don't care what the outcome is. You're going to represent.
Well, I can't believe it.
I
was just going to say, I can't believe it. We're already well past an hour. So how can people, you know, get a hold of what you're doing, follow your work, look at the activewear, but more importantly, also help the project that you're working on?
Well, as far as the activewear, Redefine Your Mind activewear. If you're a yoga enthusiast, yoga studio, someone that's into low to moderate impact activities, or just like to, you know, wear shirts, the three necessities identified: food, clothing, and shelter. Then visit us on the web at www.redefineyourmind. That is REDEFINEYOURMIND.com. RedefineYourMind.com. We're also on Facebook as Redefine Your Mind. We're on Instagram as Redefine Your Mind Co. And we're on Twitter as well as Redefine Your Mind. For Redefine Your Mind Project and our nonprofit work, if you're someone that's vegan, that believes in the principle of teaching and encouraging others to engage in leadership activities through liberation efforts, and understand the need to engage individuals who have been severely misguided, but certainly seek guidance, then you can visit us on Facebook at this time at Redefine Your Mind Project, or facebook.com/rym.project. And we also just established an Instagram page, Redefine Your Mind Project, as well as a Twitter account, which is Redefine Your Mind Project. Now, if you're interested in learning a little more about some of the things that you find video clips on the Redefine Your Mind Project pages for Facebook as well as Twitter.
Well, perfect. We'll put all of those in the show notes for everyone.
Okay. I really appreciate that. And again, it has been fantastic talking to you all. You all are a couple of great guys. When I first learned about Which Side, I did my due diligence and listening to some of you all shows, and y'all guys pretty funny. Y'all guys pretty funny. I said, my goodness gracious. I wonder which one of y'all's idea was to get the other one to come on board. Y'all two trip.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you all. Thank you all for this time. Mariana, Mari, thank you for being patient with me. It has certainly been Skype tag, to say, for lack of better phraseology. It's certainly been Skype tag. We've been playing with each other for the last couple of weeks. I hope that the listeners are intrigued by what we talked about today, and even if not contacting Redefine Your Mind Project or deciding to, promote something through Redefine Your Mind Active, that you engage a youth. That's one of the videos that I talk about. You have something to say, tell a youth. Tell somebody. Just tell one person. And when we get our mentorship program, we want to be able to bring people that are vegan on board, that's willing to teach one youth about veganism, animal liberation, and compassion for all beings. Thank you all.
I'm super glad we got it all worked out with through the Skype, and have a wonderful rest of your weekend. This week you heard
There Are Thousands Sleeping in Peace by the Mercury program.
Right now you're listening to
Sin the Moon by Shark Quest.
iTunes. We didn't get any ratings or reviews this week, so I take it to mean that no one liked anything we did.
Yeah, they don't like us.
I think that's fair. I think it's fair.
Probably just stop releasing episodes now.
That's also fair, right?
Yeah.
But if you did enjoy it, even just a fucking little bit, please rate and review us on iTunes. And if you've already done it, high five to you. You are awesome. And by that, I mean you truly inspire awe in those who have not done it yet. But feel free to do it on someone else's device, Ghost Review. But if you haven't done it, please just consider it. It only takes a second.
Give us the energy to release another episode, so I don't have to find it elsewhere.
Do you go to the bottle or pills?
Whatever, man.
Whatever works.
Whatever.
Social.
Oh, speaking of having no friends, follow us on social media and be our friend. Like us, rate us, review us. That's not how it works, but, be our friend on social media. And we often talk about things that we don't talk about on the show. So pretty much every day. WestJetPodcast.com. Click on the social tab.
And be social.
If you talk to us, we'll talk back. That's how it works.
Should we start a Snapchat channel?
I'll just send pictures of my dick. No, I would send pictures with the photo filters. Always.
We could send photos while we're actually recording. Look at us. If you guys really want that, we'll do it. But I don't know why anyone would want that.
I don't want that. You could have that one.
Fuck shit damn, man.
Fuck shit damn.
Which Side Podcast is hosted and produced by Jordan Halliday and Jeremy Parkin of the Which Side Media Collective, with web design by Jordan Halliday and sound design by Jeremy Parkin. Booking by Mari Halliday. Theme music by Commandantes. Go to whichsidecollective.org to check out the other shows in the collective. As always, fuck shit damn.